What's happening with this whole real estate settlement, Realtor NAR settlement. But I want to specifically talk about three things. So pay attention. This is where we're going to have some fun. There are two main articles I'm going to show you. I'm going to compare them to show you what most of the media is talking about, and then to show you what some of the other side is talking about. And then the third thing is I'm going to jump into the FAQ that NAR, the National Association of Realtors, broke out for everyone to see, everyone to read, and I have then 8 things on there. This shouldn't go for over 15 minutes. Now, if you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, I did put a link up there to subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Now let's get to this. This for me is my favorite part because I get to share with you what I'm thinking and what I'm seeing out there, because it's important to pay attention to what is happening here. If you Google real estate news, you're going to find a lot of amazing things. Here you have a CNN article, a New York Times, Business Insider. All of them seem to have the same agenda, the same titles, right? Let's go and take a look at the New York Times. That's the first article I want to share with you. And you see here, it says the New York Times. You scroll up, it says powerful. And if you can't see, zoom in, but it says powerful realtor group agrees to slash commissions to settle lawsuit. Now, we're seeing a lot of these types of articles because they're being sensationalized, right? And if we scroll down, we'll go through the important things. Here it says housing experts said the deal and the expected savings for homeowners could trigger one of the most significant jolts in the U.S. housing markets in 100 years. And then you get to see somebody say, this will blow up the market and would force a new business model, said Norm Miller, a professor emeritus of real estate at the University of San Diego. I don't know who this guy is, but I can tell you right now, he's absolutely wrong about that. Let's go down. It says economists estimate that commissions could now be reduced by 30%, driving down home prices across the board. Notice that we're driving down home prices across the board. Now, I don't know about you, but, and I'm going to continue to read, supply and demand is what drives prices, not an agent deciding to say, hey, well, let's negotiate the commission now. Have you ever met a seller who wants to just let go of their home for a lesser price because they kind of just feel like it? Doesn't exist. Let's get real here. The opening of a free market for realtor compensation could mirror the shakeup that occurred in the travel industry with the emergence of online broker sites such as Expedia and Kayak. And we all saw what happened there. Yes, the agents dwindled, but traveling didn't get any less expensive, right? Right. Now let's go down to this one. This is my favorite one. I'm a history major, of course, and that's why I loved this one. And it says, some experts said, I don't know who these some experts are, but they seem to be idiots. Some experts said the shift on commission structure and the billions of dollars that would flow into the housing market as a result could spark a recovery in the housing market, going so far as to say that it could be as significant, get this, okay, as significant as the 1930s New Deal. A flurry of legislation and executive orders signed by President Franklin D. Roosevelt, designed to stabilize and rebuild the nation's economic recovery following the Great Depression. Keep on reading. This included the Better Housing Program, which was designed to make housing and mortgages more accessible, affordable, right? And led to the creation of the Federal Housing Administration. So there, in essence, this article from the New York Times is saying that this is equivalent to that because, this is the only reason that prices are so high, right? It makes logical sense, right? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's like I'm reading fiction here. It's unbelievable that this was printed by the New York Times. This is article number 1. It's garbage. It's crap. It's fake news. They didn't even interview people that understand the real estate market. Now, let's check out another one. All right. This one is Business Insider. It says the end of the realtor monopoly. This was written by James Rodriguez, and I think he didn't do too bad of a job. Why? He actually asked agents, and then he looked at what's actually happening. Read this with me. It says the newly announced settlement doesn't go quite that far. While sellers will no longer be required to say how much they're offering a buyer's agent when they list their home on the MLS, they're not expressly prohibited from offering that compensation somewhere else. That's right. Makes sense. Okay, great. It just can't be anywhere on the MLS. There will likely be 1,000 workarounds, says Brett Weinstein. Good job, Brett. Founder and CEO of Denver brokerage Guide Real Estate told me. A buyer's agent could just call up the seller's agent and ask what commission they'll get. Or the listing agent could advertise the commission tied to the home on their website. I mean, it's pretty easy, right? In theory, the seller might still offer compensation to a buyer's agent because they want to get, check this out, they want to get as many offers as possible on the home. Does that make sense to you? That's supply and demand. That's the USA that I know. I didn't realize that according to the New York Times, we live in a communist country. This is crazy that people would go as far as to say what was said in the New York Times. Now, keep on reading here. In theory, we read that if you're a seller and you don't offer anything, then any buyer who wants your home will have to pay their agent out of pocket. And a lot of cash-strapped buyers simply can't do that, right? And what happens to the first-time home buyers? What happens to low income who are just trying to get that American dream? Becomes a challenge. In some cases, sellers might still feel pressured to offer the going rate so the agent's commission could end up looking pretty much the same as it is today, right? So that's more real. Now keep on reading. There's a second part to this one, and then we'll get into the FAQ. It says, as for home prices, I'm not convinced they'll actually drop as a result of this settlement. Of course they won't, guys. Anybody who thinks that home prices will drop because of this doesn't understand the basic economics of how countries work. Specifically in the US, it's supply and demand. If there's supply and people are like, well, there's a whole bunch of houses and there's less buyers, what do you think happens? And what do you think happens on the reverse? So think about it. When you're reading this garbage sometimes, think, am I reading something that makes sense? This one makes sense. Now keep on reading, and then we'll get into the FAQs. It says, it's hard to imagine a seller shaving 3% off their listing price just because they're not offering a commission to the buyer's agent, especially if a comparable house down the street is selling for a similar amount. Sales have slowed down with higher mortgage rates, but the seller still has the upper hand in most parts of the United States. See, this makes sense, right? This person actually understands real estate. So just shaving off a little bit on the commission, you think the seller's going to be like, whoa, now I can drop the price down and offer it for less for everybody. Yeah, it's never going to happen, ever. Now let's go to the FAQ. There are other ones that are stupid as well. Check out the Washington Post. Realtor settlement could dramatically change cost of housing. And then you've got CNN, who's just missed it this whole time with this whole thing. How the recent realtor settlement could change the way Americans buy and sell real estate. Absolute garbage. Now let's get into the NAR FAQ. I've got 8 sections really quick for you here. But first, I know some of you have questions or some of you want to add some things. So throw it into the chat. I'm watching it as well. And let's get into this together. The first one is number 2. What are the key terms of the agreement? And if you look at it here, the thing that stood out for me, I highlighted two areas, one in yellow, one in, I guess that's a light blue teal. It says, despite NAR's efforts, agents affiliated with Home Services of America and its related companies, the last corporate defendant still litigating the Sitzer Burnett case, are not released under the settlement, nor are employees of the remaining corporate defendants named in the case covered by the settlement. So if you look at the question, it says, what are the key terms of this agreement? It's telling you who's included and who's not. And here is Home Services of America, so you know who they are. You scroll down, it's Berkshire Hathaway, and some of these you recognize, some of them I don't. The ones I recognize are Intero, Long and Foster, obviously Berkshire Hathaway. And my thoughts are, well, if you think about how lawsuits happen in general, right, and this is just speculation, but typically they go for the deeper pockets. And who owns Berkshire Hathaway? You know. Next one, compensation offers moved off the MLS. So this is the one that we've been talking about. It says that NAR has agreed to put in place a new rule prohibiting offers of compensation on the MLS. And we went through that in the last article of Business Insider. Offers of compensation could continue to be an option. Consumers can pursue off MLS through negotiation and consultation with real estate agents. Just everything has to be off the MLS. Look, it doesn't stop people from deciding to say, hey, you know what? Let's predetermine what the compensation to the agent is, or let's negotiate on the fly. This doesn't stop from a seller writing down in a contract, I'm going to pay, hey, listing agent or my agent, right? What should I pay? I don't know. Let's offer him this percentage, but let's have it set so we don't change it. We can't put it in the MLS, but when they call me, at least we have an amount, right? It doesn't stop anybody from doing that. Let's keep reading. There's a purple section here under the number 2. Still, it says NAR would pay $418 million over approximately 4 years. Yes, and I am putting this in the link, so if you want to read this section, you definitely can. Let's go to number 5, and let's expand it here. So you can see number 5, it says, by changing the cooperative compensation policy, aren't you admitting that it was problematic? And NAR says, NAR has long maintained, and we continue to believe, that cooperative compensation and NAR's current policies are good things that benefit buyers and sellers. They promote access to real property ownership, particularly for lower and middle income buyers, which is what we talked about, who can have difficult enough time saving for a down payment. And we definitely have seen that as a big issue for affordability as prices have gone up, right? And we all know why prices went up, right? Not because of our commission. No, not because of our commission. Just wanted to tell you that. Just a reminder. Shocker. Real estate laws in many states authorize offers of compensation. So that's that one. Let's go to number 6. Number 6 was pretty decent. Here's what it asks. Is it possible for offers of compensation to be conveyed through channels other than the MLS? Yes. Yes, of course. It says offers of compensation. Let me zoom in for you on this one. Offers of compensation could continue to be an option. Consumers can pursue off MLS through negotiation and consultation with real estate professionals. And sellers can offer buyer concessions on the MLS. That means if you want to give a buyer, let's say, $1,000 for carpet or whatever, it's allowed. Easy. That's number 6. Let's go to number 7. I think I saw a question come through. But number 7, will this prohibition save money for sellers or buyers? I highlighted the one that I thought was important. It said, as NAR has maintained throughout the litigation, nothing in NAR's current policies, including the MLS model rule, has increased cost for buyers or sellers. In fact, it baffles me that people are still thinking that there's a set rate of 6%. It never has been there, right? So for me, I'm noticing that the media has no comprehension of how real estate works, so they put out fake news in order to get people to read. And then they spread these lies, and then they leave us with this problem to go and say, "Hey guys, just wanted to remind you that it's always been negotiable, and it hasn't changed." Right? So let's go back now here. Number 8. Let's go to number 8 together. How does the settlement affect the MLSs? This one I was a little bit unclear, so I highlighted a little bit more. And there's a document with 108 pages that I went through, and there are things that I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? So I had to dig deeper. Here's what this one means. How does the settlement affect MLSs? While the release excludes MLSs that are not wholly owned by realtor associations, the agreement provides a mechanism for those MLSs to obtain releases efficiently if they choose to use it. This one was, to me, sounded kind of interesting and maybe even sneaky. It says this mechanism includes opting into the MLS practice changes that are part of the agreement and paying a per subscriber fee to the settlement. They're in essence saying this. They're saying, look, if you want to be included in the releases MLSs, just join us and pay. I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's definitely a plus for these MLSs, right? Now it says at the bottom, additionally, we have agreed to require MLS participants, right? That's those realtors that are paying the dues, working with buyers to enter into written representation agreements with buyers. So that means before we show property, we're going to have the buyers we're working with sign this agreement, right? And let's go to number 11. We're almost done. See, it wasn't that bad. We went through, we're having some fun. Questions are being answered. How will buyer brokers get paid now? Okay, this I put in orange because it had to do with commission, so I wanted to make it clear to everyone. Here's what I got. Offers of compensation could continue to be an option. Consumers can pursue off MLS, which we already know. Through negotiations, hasn't changed. And consultation, great, hasn't changed with real estate professionals, okay? The types of compensation available for buyer brokers would continue to take multiple forms, depending on broker-consumer negotiations, included but not limited to fixed fee commissions paid directly by the consumers, right? That means, hey, you know what? I decided that I'm going to pay the buyer's agent this amount, and I've signed a contract. So this way, when the buyer agents call up, are you offering a commission? It's set, right? And then there's part 2 to this, which is concessions from the seller. Good, easy. Portions of the listing broker compensation. That means the agent, right, as well. Compensations would continue to be negotiable and should always be negotiated between agents and the consumers they serve, right? They have to continue that way. Easy. Not much changed there. Number 12, 2 more. This is second to the last one. Why does the release of liability carve out some codefendants and some of the affiliated agents, right? And we went over this at the very beginning. I think it was under number 2, where it says, hey, look, NAR fought to include everyone, but despite NAR's efforts, right here it says it, agents affiliated with Home Services of America and its related companies were not included. And we went through those, right? Here they are, Berkshire Hathaway and all of these companies that they include that they've bought over the years. They're not included. I told you what my speculation was, right? Typically when you see lawsuits go to the deeper pockets, and you all know who Berkshire Hathaway is owned by. Number 16. What should listing brokers advise their clients about the prohibition of offers of compensations on the MLS? And this is the last one here. It says, this should be the advice. Listing brokers should inform their clients that offers of compensation would no longer be an option on the MLS. Easy. Okay. So no longer on the MLS, but we can put it on our websites. We can put it on the contract. We can talk about it. All right. This change will not prevent offers of cooperative compensation off MLS, which is what I just dictated. And it will not prevent sellers from offering buyer concessions on the MLS. Great. And then lastly, compensation would continue to be negotiable and should always be negotiated between agents and the consumers they serve. So, look, the thing I want you to see and read are our two main things. One, media has no clue as to how we actually function or how we functioned really. And number two is things are always changing. If it's not this, it's going to be something else. And I want you to just know that we're always having to adjust as real estate agents, teams, brokers, whatever it is. And our job is always to connect with the consumer at a level where they can trust us and we can build relationships because they're going to come to us. They're going to need our help as long as we offer the value that they're looking for, right? And I know a lot of you have done that at such a deep level for a very long time. So keep on doing that. Things aren't changing like people, like the media is saying, hey, right? Just make sure that you have your value outline. You have your call to actions down because people will still need us. This is the largest investment for most people. The majority of Americans will never sell anything larger than their home. This is it. So keep working at it. And if you have questions, let me know. Hope you enjoyed this. And if you have questions, put them into the chat. I'd love to read them. I'm always learning from you. And let me know how I did. Have an awesome day.